So here you are at the beginning of a brand new course in economics. And one of the things that is probably on your mind right now is, why should you even bother studying economics? What good is it? Is it only a class that you are forced to take because the state of Colorado said you're required to take economics before you graduate from high school? Or is there some personal benefit that you can actually receive by understanding the world of economics? And you can probably guess that the answer to that question is yes. There are reasons why you should study economics. Well, what are some of those reasons? Well, first of all, when you watch the news or you pick up a newspaper, you can begin to make sense of it. You would be surprised when you get done with this course how many news events you will read about or see on TV, and you'll understand them so much better because you have an understanding of economics. And you'll be able to make sense of the news differently. But more personally in your own life, you'll be able to make much better decisions about how you spend your time and how you spend your money. Both of those are in limited supply. You only get 24 hours to spend every day, and you have to decide what to do with your time. And you only have a certain amount of money. We always wish we had more, but we don't. And so you want to make the best decision about how to use that limited time and that limited money. Economics will help you do that. And in the end, as a result of that, because you make better choices, you will lead a happier, more satisfying life. So because of this, economics will provide a framework for understanding the world around you. When you get done with this course, the way you view the world around you and the way you view events all around you will be dramatically different than the way you view them now, because you will see them with an economic mindset. It also will help you to evaluate messages from all these different sources that we get information from. You are constantly being bombarded with advertisements about different products to buy. You see things in the media, and there are people always trying to take your money from you. People always want you to spend your money with them. Well, should you? Or should you withhold it? Economics is going to help you to evaluate those messages from all those conflicting sources and do the best that you can with the limited money that you have. So, here's the key idea for the first module. As you will see, this course is divided up into different modules, and in each module, we will ask a different question, and we will have a different key idea or essential understanding that will guide our study of that particular module. And you can see our first question is, well, what is economics all about? And here's the key idea that you need to understand when you get done with this lesson. And that is that economics deals first and foremost with the choices we make, both as individuals and as a society under conditions of scarcity. There are two words that I want to emphasize there: the word choice and the word scarcity. And we're going to study those in more depth as we go through this particular lesson. So what are the objectives? Well, first, we'll begin by explaining what economics actually it is and why it's important. Second, we'll define this term, opportunity cost. Third, we'll differentiate between your wants and your needs. How are they different? What is a want? What is a need? And finally, we will identify and list the key economic resources in society that help to meet our wants and needs. So, here's the first point that we have to understand. Scarcity implies trade-offs. Okay? Economics can be defined this way. It's the study of choice under conditions of scarcity. If you learn nothing else at the beginning of this course, it's that economics involves making choices. You are making choices every single day with how to spend your time and choices of how to spend your money, because you can't have everything you want. You don't have an unlimited amount of time, so you can't do everything that you want to do, and you don't have an unlimited amount of money, so you can't buy everything that you want to buy. So how do you make those choices? Economics is all about studying how we make those choices, because our time is limited and our resources and money are limited, and in other words, we say that they are scarce. So exactly what does it mean to say something is scarce? To say something is scarce means there's a limited quantity of it. Now, there could be a very large quantity of it. Oil is scarce, but we may have enough oil left in the ground to last another 75 or 100 years. Coal is scarce, but we may have enough left to last another 400 years. So we have an abundance of it, But if it's ultimately finite and limited, it is considered to be scarce. And so scarcity exists with most of what we want and need. Scarcity exists when we desire more of something than we can have. So, because of this, you make a trade-off when you give up one thing to get something else. This means you make trade-offs to overcome scarcity. Think about when you go to the cafeteria and you have a limited amount of money to spend. You look at the menu and you decide, I don't have enough money to buy both potato chips and soda, so I have to choose. Do I want the potato chips or do I want the soda? And if you buy the potato chips, then what you trade off or give up is the soda. And if you buy the soda, what you trade off or give up are the chips. Because in that case, you don't have enough to buy everything that you want. So you can think of any time you go somewhere. Think of a store that you go in, a clothing store that you go into, or maybe you go to a restaurant. Do you have enough money to buy everything that you want in there? No. So you choose to buy one thing and give up something else that you want in order to buy it. That is called a trade-off. When you choose to go to the movies on a Friday night instead of going to a football game, then what you give up to go to the movies is the football game, if you had desired to do that. So this leads us to something that we call an opportunity cost. Every time we make a choice of how to spend our limited time, every time we make a choice of how to spend our limited money or our limited resources, we are giving something up. And what we give up that we would normally do if we had an unlimited amount of time and money is called the opportunity cost of the decision. The opportunity cost is defined as a choice. It's the value of the next best alternative given up when that choice is made. So, look at this example here. On a Friday night, maybe you can go to the movies with your friends, you can play basketball with your friends, but you can't do both at the same time. So if you go to the movies, but you gave up playing basketball, meaning that is what you would have done if you didn't go to the movies, that's the opportunity cost of going to the movies. It's not everything else that you could have done with your time. It's the next best alternative. In other words, if you didn't go to the movies, what is the next thing you would have done with your time? That's your opportunity cost. That's what you gave up. Think of the example of coming to school today. Okay? Now, you do have the option to cut class. You could skip economics class if you wanted to. You have the free will to do that. You could even skip school if you wanted to. But you made the choice to come. Why? Because the opportunity cost is usually too high for most students. Well, what did you give up? Well, if you don't come to class continually, you won't get credit for the class, and you won't ultimately get your high school diploma, and then you won't go to college, which will lead to not getting the job that you want. So, in a sense, coming to school today helps to lead to what you want in life. And you think, if I don't come to school, then what I'm going to be giving up in the future is not worth it. So I come to school. Even though you might much rather be outside playing or hanging out with your friends. Or maybe it's a more limited thing. Maybe you don't want to, get detention for skipping class. Or maybe you don't want to be punished by your parents if you skip class. So the opportunity cost of that decision, then, is what you gave up. And so for most students, choosing to cut class or cut school is not a good alternative. So now we turn our attention to scarcity and how society as a whole meets it. Okay? As a whole society, we have both needs and wants. Now, we define needs as the minimal requirements of things that are necessary for survival. Food, water, and shelter. And we don't even need expensive food. We don't need pure, ultimately purified water. We need relatively clean water, but it doesn't have to have all the extra things that we sometimes add to it. And we don't have to live in fancy homes. All you need is a minimal roof over your head. Okay? Those are our needs. And our needs are pretty basic. Most of what we have in our lives are wants, not needs. A want is something we desire. but it's not essential to life. It's not essential to our survival. So when we talk about our economy not only fulfills our needs, in other words, our economy produces the goods and services that meet our needs, but our economy does far more than that. It produces goods and services that meet our wants. Think of the cars we drive, the homes we live in, the things that are in our homes, the phone or the iPad that you have. These are all wants, but society produces them, and then they distribute them to certain people. Most of the items that we have, though, are wants. So, if society is producing goods and services, what are goods and services? When we use the term goods, we're talking about physical goods, okay? Goods that you can touch and feel. These are physical items that are produced in an economy. Some people make jeans. Some people produce tennis rackets. Some people produce popcorn. Some make cars. Some build homes. And all the other physical goods that are produced in our economy. Those are defined as goods. But if you look at our economy today, most people, and I would assume that many of your parents work at jobs where they are not producing a physical good, they are actually providing a service that people desire. Now, before we talk about those services, think of some of the goods that you are currently carrying. What do you have with you? While you're watching this video, what is surrounding you that is a physical good? You can probably identify many physical goods that you can touch and feel in the room around you. Those are produced by the economy. But services are activities. They're actions that are produced by an economy. Do we want people to do services for us? Sure. Education is a service. I, as your teacher, I'm providing a service. I don't produce a physical good. I provide a service by teaching. Actors, professional football players, they provide a service through entertainment. Doctors and lawyers provide services to us, providing us with legal help when we're in trouble, or providing us with medical care when we get sick. Health care is a service. Architects produce a service. Pilots fly a plane. They're producing a service. Most of the jobs that people do today are providing services for someone else. So the economy produces the goods and services that we need and want. Now, where do those goods and services come from? Well, ultimately, every good and service that is produced in society comes from basic elements. And all goods and services are produced by these resources. What are they? Well, land. Land is what we call the gifts of nature. Anything that comes from nature. It's not just the land that you walk on. It's anything that is underneath the ground, in the water, growing from the ground, anything that comes from that. So oil and coal and plants and trees and minerals of all kinds, food, anything that comes from the land is a natural resource that is used to produce goods and services. So anything drawn from nature for use in the production of goods and services is considered a land resource. But then, these goods and services don't magically produce themselves. They come from human labor. Labor is the work that you and I do. It's the physical or mental labor. Work can be physical, but it can also be mental. It's the physical or mental work that we do and the time and effort that we put into producing goods and services. So when people go to work every day, they're producing services. People that work in factories are producing goods. So that is labor, because the resources that come from the land don't automatically turn themselves into homes and cars and furniture and clothing. People have to turn them into those goods and services. And so human labor is required. And then the third element is capital. Capital is anything that lasts for a long time that is created by human beings to use in production. So capital would be tools that are used to produce goods and services. Equipment, machinery, computers. The tractor that you see on this screen that is tilling the field to produce a harvest. Anything that is used over and over and over again not as the final product, but it's a piece of equipment, machinery, tools that is used over and over again to produce the final goods and services that we want, is considered capital. Now, think of renting or buying space if you wanted to start and run a business. That's capital. The space that you rent is physical capital because you use it over and over and over again in your business to produce a good or service. And the investment in labor is important in terms of training because people have to know how to produce goods and services before they can do it. A doctor has to be trained before they can provide you with surgery. A teacher has to be trained before they can teach you economics. An architect has to be trained before they can design a house for you. A pilot has to be trained before they can fly a plane. A mechanic has to be trained before they can repair an automobile. So education trains labor. Education provides us with the knowledge and skills that we need so that labor can produce the goods and services that we want. And so investing in labor and investing in education is critically important. Now, in addition to land and labor, we've seen that capital is important, but there is something else that's also important, and that is entrepreneurship. An entrepreneur is the person who puts land, labor, and capital together. This is the willingness of people to come together to organize, operate, and assume all the risks that are involved with business ventures. So Steve Jobs, when he founded Apple Computer, he was acting as an entrepreneur because he purchases land, labor, and capital to come together to produce Apple computers and now iPhones and iPads. That's entrepreneurship, and that is needed as well. Now, if you were to come up with an idea for a business, think about what you might produce. Would people want what you're going to produce? Is there demand for it? Then how much land or space would you need to rent to produce it? How many workers or labor would you have to hire to produce it? What type of equipment, tools, or machinery or buildings would you need to produce it? That's capital. So whatever it is you think you would want to produce to sell to someone else as part of your business, you would have to know there was a demand for it, and then you would have to purchase land, labor, and capital, the resources needed to produce your service or to produce your good. So, with limited resources and unlimited wants, society is forced to make trade-offs because ultimately everything that is in the land. All of those resources are limited. Human beings can only do so much labor in a day. It's limited. Capital is limited. So if all of the resources that we use to make goods and services are limited and scarce, then that means all of the goods and services that we want that are produced from them are also scarce. So this is what economics is studying. Society has unlimited wants and desires, and we have to meet those unlimited wants and desires with limited resources. So we can't have everything that we want. So because of this, we have to give things up to get what we want. That's called a trade-off, and we are always making trade-offs. So if we want more to provide more resources to educate our kids, then maybe we don't have as many left over for national defense. It's a trade-off. That's what we have to do. And so we're forced to make these trade-offs. Now, what you see here, this is a model, and we're going to look at a lot of models in economics. Models show the relationship, in this case, between resource scarcity and unlimited wants and needs. The capacity to produce goods and services is limited by the scarcity of resources. If resources weren't scarce, we could all have everything that we wanted and have as much of it as we wanted, and no one would be poor. We would all have everything we desire in unlimited quantities. But we know that's not true. We know that some people have a lot of what they want, but not everything. Some people are very poor. And so we can't give everyone everything that they want. So economics is all about the science of efficiency. How do we get the most? How can we produce the greatest quantity of goods and services from the limited resources that we have? That's what efficiency is. Every time we can get more goods and services out of the same quantity of resources, we are being more efficient and we are producing more. And economics studies this and how we deal with the scarcity issue. And so we need to make wise choices. We need to be wise about resource use so that we can maximize our wants and needs and get the most of what we want. So, to test your understanding of this lesson and whether you got it or not, ask yourself this question. How does the scarcity of resources affect society's ability to satisfy its wants? If you can give a good answer to this question, then you got today's lesson. To conclude, you also should know the meaning of each of these terms. Each of these terms was introduced in today's lesson. And so you may wish to pause the video, create a section in your notebook, title it Vocabulary, copy these terms down, write a definition for each of these terms, and you might even wish to create 2 examples that you could share of each of these to show your understanding of it. But each of these is terms that you need to fully understand and how it applies to your look at economics.